3, 2.
And welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. And glad to be here inside the Michigan Insider studios once again with a regular guest as he drops by about once a month to give us an update on the happenings in the Michigan Athletic Department. There's been a lot going on here. Seems like a lot here in the last couple of weeks, as a matter of fact, within the Michigan Athletic Department. Always pleased to be joined by our esteemed guest, Michigan Athletic Director Warde Manuel joins us here inside the Michigan Insider studio. Warde, how you doing this morning?
Man, I'm doing great, Sam. It's been busy, but it's been good busy.
Yeah,
in terms of what's going on in the athletic department. So it's good to be here on a regular basis now, and talking to you and talking to our fans is always great.
Yeah, I want to rewind a bit, and because I want to jump right in, because I want to keep you on a tighter schedule than we were last time when you were gracious enough to go overtime with us. But rewind and go back to the search process with Dusty May.
Want to rewind?
Yeah, where you obviously have been vetting him for a long time,
yeah,
and the characteristics that you had identified in him that made him be the guy, but you got him on the job. Compare what you saw during the search process with what you've actually seen in him since he's been here, because clearly you just got him to agree to an extension because he must have exceeded those expectations.
Well, Dusty has done a remarkable job. From the time that he transitioned the staff to the work that he did to build this team. I mean, when he took over, we really had about 3 or 4 kids left on scholarship that were still around and not saying they're going to leave. And so it was truly remarkable what he did to build the staff and then build the team very quickly with great young men who exemplify what Michigan's about, and the hard work and the dedication and the effort in the classroom, all those things that are there. When I look back at my time through the process of going back and reviewing and talking to people about Dusty, to actually sitting in front of him and having a conversation, he's not really exceeded my expectations as much as he did everything he said he was going to do. And that's rare. When you sit and you interview somebody and they speak about what their plan is to do. Now, he never said, "Oh, we're gonna go from worst to first." I mean, he never said something like that. But what he said is how he's going to build the program, how he's going to build a team, how he interacts with them, how he creates an atmosphere for his team where they're connected to each other and he's connected to them. His ability to connect with donors in the community, the president, the board. So it's really about who Dusty is and what he means to Michigan in a very short time frame. Mm-hmm. That caused me to look at this, and we can go into it as much as you want, caused me to look at this now and to say, this is the person I want to lead this program for a long time. Mm-hmm. And while, we were, people say you're lucky. Well, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, mm-hmm. right? That's what Bo Schembechler taught us. He came to us and he committed to us at a time where he could have got more. And I knew it. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody, thought he was going elsewhere, but I knew that. But he had committed to it because he felt like Michigan was a place that he wanted to be. And in that conversation, I said, Dusty, I promise you, you do well, you'll get more. And I had to do what I said I was going to do. And so it just really, he's been a blessing to this program. He really gets along well with Kim and other coaches, and I don't know anybody. I've not met anybody yet who said, I just don't like Coach May.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. I mean, that's rare, man. Anyway, it's that's where you go back. You go back to he's doing everything and more that he said he would accomplish. And again, never promising we would be number one in the league, tied for number one, or at the time number one. And I mean, it's just a remarkable job, and he's just a great person. Anna and his kids. I mean, it's just a remarkable, relationship that he has built with Michigan. And we all, when I talked to the president about it, Santa was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, support 100%." You giving him a new contract. The board was all supportive, mainly because of the same reasons that I see. I mean, he has a way of ingratiating himself and connecting to people within this community, within Michigan donor base, fan base, student fans. I mean, all those things are just it's just been remarkable to see, and I'm so glad he's going to be here for a long time to come.
So put me into your seat and kind of walk me through the process of how this goes down. You said you told Dusty, you do well, you'll get more. Mm-hmm. So how does that process then get initiated? Is that something that you do, his agent does, and when? Yeah. And is this different from how you normally go about it? Do you normally go about it after the season or in season? Take me through those steps.
It really depends. I mean, I've done it in season before, where I've given coach a new contract. And it is really all about feel and how you see the program, where you see it going. And I'd rather be proactive than reactive. Now, let me talk about this. It was after the Rutgers weekend, either that Monday or Tuesday, I believe it was the Monday. I asked Doug, who oversees my chief of staff, and he's sport administrator for basketball. I asked him, I want a breakdown of all the Big Ten head coaches' salaries. I want to see where Dusty is. Look at some comparisons nationally. Want to talk about that with you. Simultaneously, I called the president and I said to him, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I'm taking a look at some numbers now. I'll get back to you. And he, like I said earlier, said, you have my full support. I think, he deserves it, earns it. And I like, the fact that you're thinking about doing this now. A day or two later, it comes out that Indiana has let their coach is going to resign. Ironically, right? Before
so you were already on it before that.
Yes.
Okay.
And what I said to Dusty is, I said, man, this is not about Indiana. This is about Michigan.
Okay.
And I assured him, and I said to him, I said, this started a few days before that was even announced. So I just wanted him to understand this is about what Michigan wanted, not a reaction to the Indiana situation. And so for me, I felt great about it because it was something that he I think realized when I told him that this, we want you. Mm-hmm. This is not about we want to keep you from somewhere else. We want you to be our head coach, period. And so the fact that I was thinking about it was very beneficial, I think, to the conversation with him. So he understood that this ball started rolling. The conversation with the president was there. The conversation to look at the data was there. So it was just, and then eventually we had, his agent involved, and he had his agent involved, and those kind of things. Great discussion. Dusty and his agent, great people, handled everything. We're all open with each other, about the data and everything that we see. And so it was a great conversation, and I won't, it's never really truly easy, to go through everything, but it was as easy as it can be when you're trying to negotiate a
Oh yeah.
deal.
Listen, this could very easily go another way. I mean, if he wanted to drag it out,
Sure,
he could have dragged it
sure.
out. But
And that's
clearly
not
he
the
didn't.
way he is. By the way, he's not. It's not the way he is. It wasn't about the highest price tag and what the most I can get and those kind of things. It was about what does he need and his staff and his team, and what can we do to make sure in this process he feels supported in the whole, and not just about Dusty's not a me person at all.
So support. It has been the case historically that engaging the donor base for basketball has historically been more challenging than engaging the donor base for football. Now, football had its own challenges in the past, but once Michigan won the national championship, and in reaction to the changing atmosphere, right, we have seen a stepping up to the challenge, the donor base, right? I mean, Michigan faithful have answered the call, right? We see it. Are you seeing a similar reaction to answering the bell on the basketball side of things? Clearly, you have gotten the head basketball coach. You've signed him to an extension. There is a similar call when it comes to the need to support basketball in that way, support basketball NIL in that way. As the athletic director, do you see the similarities in the reactions from donors and the level of support?
100%. And it started really last summer. It started when they started to meet Dusty in the spring. We have already elevated where we are from a support standpoint around particularly NIL and in what the support is from the champion circle and the money that goes in. And obviously I've had conversations encouraging people to continue to support that as we move forward. And we're going to, obviously with revenue distribution, they were already in the fold in that. And then we'll work through not only for Dusty, but for Kim and for Sharon. Obviously, those three will get the larger, portion of it. And then, but yeah, the donors have definitely stepped up, man. I mean, I was just on a donor visit this weekend, and great enthusiasm about it. I've talked to, probably 2 handfuls of donors, either that I've called or they've called me. There is a lot of excitement about him, about where the program is, and more importantly, about where everyone sees this program going and sustaining itself. And so that's the piece of it that is definitely there, and we'll continue to drive it. But Dusty has done a remarkable job, along with Sharon and along with Kim, at really getting to talk to the donors themselves about why this is important. And this is a piece of, not the reason for people to attend Michigan. And so we still have our values around academic success and in education. We still want to win championships. It's not about how much we pay. It's about, are we driving? Are we in a position to win championships? And Dusty has done just a remarkable job at selling to our donor base about why this is important and how he's using it to attract kids to Michigan. And what he's done is a part of that.
We talked a lot in the past about, what a terrific job from a fundraising standpoint, the collectives, and we talk a lot about Champion Circle and all the great work that they do. We haven't talked as much about one of, I thought, the more innovative moves that you've made in bringing in Terese Whitehead and the Altius piece of the puzzle. Can you sort of enlighten us about the specific role that they and she specifically serves, and the gap that she's filled in her short time that she's been on campus?
Yeah, really, she and I appreciate you bringing her up, because she's really been a secret weapon in a lot of ways, because she's really been able to coordinate, organize, pull together and connect all of the different pieces of NIL that we've been doing. Great relationship with the Champion Circle and their board, great relationship with what we're doing with Learfield. Also, her experience in the NFLPA in putting deals together for the athletes in the NFLPA, particularly group license deals, the way she's thinking about that and the way we're moving forward, trying to really ingrain the support, in a wider net, casting a wider net. So she has just been really, really exceptional in what she's doing. And she coordinates the education with Danielle Davidson, who's doing a good job at the NIL education and how student athletes can build their brand. And so she's really engaging in what we refer to as NIL for life, really trying to help them understand how they can benefit and learn now so that for the rest of their lives, they can use their names. I mean, we use our names every day. I mean, that's what your brand is who you are as a person. And so how to use that to the benefit long-term is also an important aspect of what she brings to the table so that these young men and women can benefit when they leave the University of Michigan.
And listening to her speak, I got a chance to meet her recently. She seems to have a really keen awareness of the changing landscape of, especially with the abundance of student athletes as advertisers, of what it means, what advertising means in this day and age. It's no longer just advertiser comes in, right, and hey, I got a student athlete and just make a tweet about me. Yep. What does being a representative mean in this content creation now is the thing, and brand representation and evolving that. She has a really sort of broad concept of how to help student athletes do that in this day and age. And I think she is going to be kicking down some doors when it comes to that. If you listen to her talk, that's going to, I think, really create a lot of opportunities for student athletes across the board, not just student athletes in the big sports.
No. This is broad based. This is about, she was dealing with, Sam, almost 2,000 former and current NFL players who are represented by the NFLPA and putting together brand deals for all of them, right? And so as the GM for NIL, she reports directly to me internally. She sits on my leadership team. We're engaged. She's engaged on all the aspects of all the teams, and all the student athletes and what it could bring. Obviously, you have brands who want to tie to, as it is in normal, everyday American professional sports, they want to tie to the stars, right? But the key that I think she's bringing to the table is how can we have something that benefits the more and more of our student athletes, and how can those programs be built? How can they capitalize on being a Michigan athlete, whatever sport they're in? How can we support that in what they're doing through deals and those kind of things? Her connection to Learfield and how she's tying in and working with Jen and tying into deals that they're putting together for our student athletes, not just for one or two or three sports, but the broader that we can be. And so she's really engaged in all aspects. She sits, like I said, in our leadership team meeting. She understands and has a great understanding now of the total department and what we're trying to do. And the ideas and the thoughts and the things that she generates have just been remarkable. So I appreciate you recognizing that. She's a Michigan grad. She loves this place. And she is just doing an exceptional job at pouring herself into making this the best NIL program that we can have, that goes beyond just what do we put in their pockets. It's about the education, it's about the coordination, it's about the broader base as well as targeted. And she's really exceptional.
So revenue streams, we've talked a lot about that since you were here and since you were here last, you've made it clear in statements that there will not be advertising inside Michigan State. There will not be Michigan advertising inside Michigan Stadium. Yeah, so
there will be no permanent advertising.
Permanent
Obviously,
advertising.
We have the Gatorade brand, and we have the Nike apparel, and we put the headsets on, but there'll be nothing on the permanently on the scoreboard or anything that we're putting in signage on the scoreboard or anything like that at this time. But there is a time. And I think, part of it is putting out the survey, Sam, is to get our fans to give us their thoughts about what they would find acceptable. I mean, $20 million is really $20.5 million. That's real dollars that we have to find in terms of revenue sharing with our student athletes. So we're cutting, almost $8 to $9 million out of our budget for next year. We're doing different things to drive more revenue through where we currently have revenue, but where we don't look like our competitors is what we do in Michigan Stadium. Our competitors across the board have advertising in their stadium, and those who we compete with are generating tens of millions of dollars in advertising or revenue from advertising in their stadium that they put towards their programs. And so we have choices. I tell my staff all the time, we have choices to make, right? You want to do this, well, what are you not going to do over here, given where we are? And that is, if we're going to make the choice that our culture and where we want to sustain is not having advertising, if that's important to us, then what are the other choices that we can make to help drive revenue to support the teams? We have said we want to keep 29 teams. We compete against Ohio State, they have 34, but we also compete against Texas. They have 19, and we compete against Alabama. I think they're around 20 sports total. And so when people say nationally who you compete with are in the Big Ten, yeah, we can measure the Big Ten too, but we also have to compete, nationally. And so it's just more getting people to understand that, and then getting feedback about the situation and trying to figure out what's the best choices for us to make as Michigan as we move forward. Now, I will say what I've always said. I played in that stadium. I don't want to have to do advertising in Michigan Stadium, but there's a time for us to actually have to think about what is in the best interest for us moving forward, and how we're going to build the revenue we need to sustain championship programs. And that's the question that we have to ask.
I say, so what are your considerations for that? I mean, is it just public sentiment or alumni sentiment when it comes to that? Because that clearly weighed heavily, if not, I won't say exclusively, but that weighed a ton in your ultimate decision not to do it. Yeah. Moving forward, though, you just talk about the competitive forces there. In some ways, this is I don't know that this is necessarily a moral decision. I don't think the teams who have advertising in their stadiums are immoral. There are far more immoral things out there than advertising, Ward. So what are the considerations here?
It's not moral at all, man. Look, nobody approaches it that way. When people talk to me about, they just talk about it's nice to go to a game and not be bombarded with advertising every time. And listen, I go to stadiums, and every third down is brought to you by somebody. Uh-huh. Every first down is brought to you by somebody. This timeout is brought to you by somebody. I mean, True. It's blast over and over and over again. And so I understand people, having never had it in Michigan Stadium that way, where they say, I just, sort of like not in my backyard, mm-hmm. Everybody else can have it. That's great, but not in my backyard. I don't want it in my backyard. Now, that being said, there are people who have said, well, I don't want it, but if you can do it tastefully and minimally, then maybe it would, I can see that as being acceptable to handle what? In other words, they don't want all that. The first down brought to you by. It's almost like what they do at Augusta is probably more in line with what our fans would find acceptable than anywhere else, where Augusta has about 4 sponsors and they handle everything, right? And that is it. And limited commercial on when you watch the Masters. So that's how I take it. Nobody's really said that, but that's how I take it when people say, well, if it's done tastefully. That's the image that pops in my head.
Yeah, I guess one of my retorts to your initial point is, if you still want someone to make those first downs and catch those touchdowns, then you might need to have those first downs and touchdowns brought to you by someone in the future.
Or it could be more donations, or it could be, we look at ticket prices or seat contributions. I mean, there's more than one way to get to the revenue that you want to get to, but I'm also conscious of the impact of raising tickets on our fans. Yeah. I mean, I'm conscious of that too. I mean, it's not as easy as flipping a switch.
Yeah.
And just making this happen. This is deliberative. It's something that we're working through, looking at, trying to study, analyzing, looking at costs, looking at things we spend money on. I mean, all those things are analyzed all the time by me and my staff to try to look at it, and quite frankly, I give a lot of credit to Santa, to the board for their support and their willingness to also join in and take a look at what's the impact of all of these decisions on Michigan athletics, because we have been for so long very independent, no money from the university, the state, and so we're trying to maintain that we don't get any in no student fee area. At both of the places I was at before, we got student fee dollars and we have support from the university, and so it's one of those things where there's a lot to think about. There's a lot that we want to continue to do, but success of the 29 programs, we're not dropping the sport at all. It's not even been a conversation, a point of conversation. We're not laying people off. We're going to take a look at open positions and do our due diligence as to what we need moving forward. But those are things that and again, the money we spend. So it's about looking at revenue, but it's also about looking at expenditures too.
So you said there are places you need to find money. You need to do things. If you aren't going to do this, then you have to do that. One of the that's, if you will, this announcement, successful one, if that was the concert that's coming.
Yes.
Zach Bryan,
very successful,
and
36-hour sellout.
Yeah, and John Mayer. Forgive me to my colleagues here at W4 Country and 107.1. Yeah, here our radio stations here.
Are they excited about it?
Super excited about it. They got all kind of big festivities. They're gonna have our lounge leading up to the game, and giving away tickets and all kind of things going on here at the stations. Yeah. But like you said, sold out in 36 hours. This is going to be huge for the area, huge for the department in terms of a revenue influx, filling in a gap. We're in a season where you only have 7 games. Now, here's the question. Is this an exception? Meaning you got 7 games, you filled in a gap, or now that you see, well, wow, look at what you did, even in a season where you got 8 games, you're still going to do this. Is this going to be a norm now?
Well, we've been working at this. Rob Rodemaker, my senior executive associate AD for internal operations, been working on this for 3 years. This is like been it's not just because we have a 6th game that we're now taking a look and doing this. This is something we've been trying to do and find an artist that could do what Zach did, which is sell out Michigan Stadium. And I don't want to give too much away, but it is literally going to be the entire Michigan Stadium. We'll you'll see how it's set up. But I'm excited to be there. to see the first concert in Michigan Stadium. And we don't plan on it being the last. We would like to do this type of utilization of the stadium to drive additional revenue where we can. To bring, I mean, I've talked to a couple of friends who own restaurants here who are super excited that we have added, not just because it replaces the game. It's not going to bring us the money that a game would bring, personally, because they're renting the stadium.
Right.
We have an agreement, through that with some shared revenue, but it's not going to replace fully replace what a game would bring to Michigan athletics. However, in terms of where it lands in with businesses and local businesses and probably hotels, it does give them an opportunity for them to also recoup some revenue that they lose when we don't have a seventh game. So a couple of my friends are really happy that we're doing this, but it's something that we're looking at. The September date as opposed to the summer. People have asked me about that. It just fell where the calendar fell. And for us, it's perfect. We're away, and that's a bye week for us. So we're away the weekend before. It's a bye week that weekend, and then we play at home the following weekend. So it's just a perfect time, and the slot fit for us to be able to do it, and quite excited about it.
I sit, and I mean, it was impressive 36 hours. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It makes you think this is something.
This dude's good.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, it is.
And you think it's something that you would want to do more, but then you think at the same time, are there really that many acts? It seems like probably a paucity of acts that could pull this off.
Yeah.
Have you had that discussion? Like how possible is it really?
There's a few others that I think can do it. I won't talk about some of the conversations we have had. Won't give it away because it may or may not happen. But there are a few that can also do that. I think people, this is being the first. I think it sort of puts in people's mind, wow, I never thought about Michigan State. I mean, listen, these promoters want to make money too. These acts, they want to make money too. The performers, right? And so they see if we can fill 100,000 seat stadium, that's better than filling a 60,000 seat stadium or whatever, So they're taking a look at people. I think are opening their eyes, and the conversations are ongoing. Now, let's be clear. This is not something we're not going to turn Michigan Stadium into a performing, for all kind of concerts and the like, but where we can insert them at key times, whether it's the summer or whether it's in the fall, like we're doing, but we also want to look at, international soccer games occurring. We open to NHL. We're doing the, golf this summer in May with the come in. It's been done at many different stadiums, come in and hit balls from different spots. It's not called Top Golf, but it'll come to me. And so we're doing that for 3 days. And so we're really just trying to be open to ways to use our biggest, source of revenue. When you have 100,000 plus stadiums, the more you could do to get people in there, the better off you are.
So, we talked about the upcoming the allocation of the money from the House settlement. You talked about the breakdown before. Since then, there was that brief language from the Department of Ed that said there was going to be some NIL. Some Title IX considerations.
Yep.
For that language since been rescinded.
Correct.
Right. So I guess my question now is, have there been any changes to your thought process as far as how the money is going to be allocated? And then some more specific questions to you have come from our listeners to your last episode. What were the considerations for you as you came up with your breakdown for how the money was allocated?
Yeah.
Or will be allocated?
Yeah, it's not really changed. Initially, we looked at both what it would be for if we distributed it by equity or if we distributed by market.
Mhm.
And then what happened is the judge, in her distribution of the settlement of the case, we're pretty much following that, where it's football, then men's basketball, then women's basketball, and then we're sprinkling in a couple of others at this present time. We'll see where that goes. But it's really following what she's doing in this particular case of the back damages, because the case was brought by those three sports because of the revenue generation of those three sports. Not only in the athletic department here, but nationally and within the NCAA, right? So when you look at in the CFP, and so when you look at those, that's how you got to it. And so the revenue distribution model is following what she's doing because it also follows the amount, for the most part, of the amount of revenue generated by each of those programs by percent. So it's those kind of things that we looked at. We talked about it internal to the athletic department, talked about it within the university. And this is, the way we'll proceed at this present time, basically because it's providing the revenue, the piece of the revenue to the groups of student athletes that are participating in the sports that's driving the revenue. I mean, so that's ultimately the way we came up.
Right. And so basically, for those who maybe missed the last one, you can always go back. We have it on our over on our YouTube page, podcast page.
Things?
Yeah, we keep them. YouTube page, podcast page. But for those who can't go or won't go back and watch it, the percentage breakdown was what, if you can?
It was going to be 75% to football. We're working on the exact percentages for men's basketball and women's basketball. But it's going to be almost, the 25%, almost all of it is going to go between, to men's basketball and then women's basketball. I mean, so that's where we are. The reason I keep saying percentages is because we've been given multiple numbers over the last couple of years. If you remember, it started at 23. Then we went to 22. I put the letter out about the impact of this decision and what we're going to do. And then now it's 20.5. And we believe it's going to stay at 20.5. But that's why I'm doing percentage.
Yeah, I just, when I saw the language from the Department of Ed, I felt like this was going to expedite, my words, not yours. I felt like this is going to expedite the fracture of revenue generating sports, primarily football, from the rest of the NCAA.
Football drives the most. Yeah, I mean, it could. I don't.
I mean, that was just my thought.
Where that's going to go. Yeah, I don't think that would be the only driver of any, if there was a fracture, if you will. There are many other things that, the A4, the Power 4, however you want to talk about it, have different than others in issues of, rules and how we govern ourselves and those kind of things, how we make rules, how quickly we move on things. I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it besides just percent of distribution. I mean, that's one aspect, but that's not all.
So before we get off into what I think is not a totally tangential conversation, because you recently were at the Big Ten SEC AD meetings. I got to ask Ward, because inquiring minds want to know, got this looming case with the NCAA, waiting to hear a resolution to this never-ending case. Wonder, is there a timeline of when there is going to be some? You had your response that was issued. Is there an update on when this is all going to be resolved?
Hopefully by the end of the summer is what I can say at this present time. But as I've done before, I can't, because of where we are with the case, I can't talk about the case itself. And I just want to make sure people understand, it's not because I think something bad is going to happen, or it's really bad, or it's really good. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the decision that's going to make. We're going to make the best argument that we have in with the facts that we know that are laid out to us. And so we put that argument in the response, and then we'll go through the process, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And then once the process is finalized, then I could talk about it. But right now, just because of just to give the investigation and the process the due respect, I don't need to comment about it at all.
Man, your respect, the fidelity to the process is impressive, commendable. I can't say that, that respect is not really shared by all participants in this process. I'm wondering, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on the consistency of the leaks in the process, and if there's any sort of recourse to dealing with the incessant leaks in the process, because they all seem to be aimed at you. Right? I mean, all seem to be painting a picture of that seem to be adverse when it comes to Michigan.
Yeah, listen, here's the problems with leaks. Nobody stands up and say they did it. And it's really more of a reflection on the individual that feels like they need to have the knowledge that they put this out. I have no respect for people that do that. I mean, this is not a time. These are issues that affect real people, and so for me, it does go down to respecting the process, because we need to be in a position where our level of integrity is being questioned now. We don't need to continue the process publicly. That's not where this is going to be decided anyway. So to put out information and to leak information just to put it out there, it doesn't help, in my opinion. And so that's why I adhere to the process, because I don't believe the other way helps either. So people say, well, Ward, they're not, they're leaking it. Who knows who's leaking it? Everybody's they. It's always they. They say, they doing. I mean, let's try to get through a process and focus on letting the process play out, and then at the appropriate time we can talk about it all. I'm not sitting here not talking about it because I'm trying to hide anything. I'm not talking about it because they've asked us in this process. We've agreed to the process and not talking about it. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
All right. So Big Ten SEC meetings.
Very good meetings.
Yeah, it's interesting, the bedfellows that are formed along the way, right? But you wind up being colleagues in this way. So I feel like the Big Ten was very happy with how the CFP selection process played out. I feel like the SEC was not as happy with things. Just my perception. You can say whether or not that was actually the case in your dealings in those meetings. I'm curious if you feel like moving forward there will be a shift in how the selection process plays out as it relates to these two leagues.
Yeah, first of all, let me just say, as ADs, we are friends with. I'm friends with a lot of ADs across the country. In the SEC, I know almost all of those guys. We've come up in the business together. ACC, Big 12, it doesn't matter. We all have relationships besides just being in the meeting. The fact that we're meeting, I think, is beneficial for us to be able to talk through issues that affect us. Like I said, like governance. You know, how do we want to be governance? CFP. How do we look at it as two leagues, and really have conversation? We're not necessarily making any decisions about things, or coming together to say we're going to do this or we're going to do that, and everybody else. I mean, we still all have individual thoughts about it, but when you share them, you get a sense that we're closer than we are far apart in how we see it. Right? It starts to break down some barriers that when you think about what other people are doing or how they are thinking about it, and then all of a sudden you hear them talk and you realize, yeah, they're thinking close to how we've been thinking about it, how I've been thinking about it, how so-and-so have been talking about it. So that's been really good. And I'll say the SEC is not, Greg Sankey and I have talked, he's not mad about the process, but certain individual teams are mad. And therefore, it makes it appear like the SEC is mad at the process. This was set up by the commissioners, and they understand that, and they've said that publicly now. That it's up to them to really change the process if they want the process changed. We can give our thoughts and advice, but ultimately, they set up the process. They set up the process of selection. They set up the process of seeding. All those things that we had to, as a committee, deal with. And so I just want to make it clear that this is not, so much one league being happy and one league not. I mean, it's about they're looking at the process, Tony included, is looking at the process. How can we improve the process as we move forward? That's just what you should do. The reality is you should always try to look to improve. And so we're going to continue to have these types of conversations, how often we meet and those kind of things. I don't know, but I talked to, several of the ADs in the SEC on a fairly consistent basis about different things to really, talk to them, get their thoughts, they call me to get my thoughts on how we're thinking about things, doing things. And so it's an important dialogue that I think we should have a seat at the table. In the Big Ten and the SEC, we should have a very significant seat at the table as it goes to what rules govern us and how we do things, because in many respects, these two leagues drive the eyeballs and in the engagement of people and those kind of things at a very high level. And we've earned it over hundreds plus years of playing these games and elevating in the amount of resources that we pour into our departments are just different than a lot of other departments. And so, it's not us being bullies. I think it's us finally coming together saying, this is the way we should talk. We should get a sense of what each other thinks without, colluding, if you will, as much as it is having conversations that benefit not only us, but our perspective on what benefits the whole. And
we'll make this be the last question, Ward, and you can answer this, whether it be, I don't know if you want to speak for the group, if there was a consensus, or just speak from your individual perspective, but there were some aspects of the CFP that seemed to be thematic. So the group of 5 teams, or not group of 5 teams, but the teams that were maybe some squads that were maybe teams that were formerly lower level teams that maybe came up and got auto bids or were elevated in ways that the rest of college football were kind of complaining about a little bit, didn't do as well in this dynamic. And the teams who got buys obviously didn't do as well in this.
They all lost.
It didn't do as well in this mix. And so was there any thought about adjusting that? Was there any thought about reseeding after the first weekend? Do you have any, whether it's the group at the meetings or you individually, any thoughts on those?
I'll give you a mixture of both. the seeding process. So there's two different words to get a hold of. Ranking 1 through 25. That's what we did. We ranked them 1 through 25. After the end of the season, given the championships, those who played in the championship, those who didn't, where they ranked, and we ranked them and debated it 1 through 25. Here's what it is. Okay. Then there was a process of seeding the 12-team playoff that was given to the committee by the commissioners, because at the time they thought, which I do think, protect your 5 champions, your 4 Power 4 and your group of 5 highest ranked champions. I totally agree with that. They should be in the 12. Doesn't matter where they are. They should be in the 12. They've earned it. Okay. But the problem with the process then became the buys. And that's where things got thrown off. Meaning, we not only want them in, but we want the top 4 to get a buy. We want them to take a step forward, step more now that they've earned. Okay, so that then throws it all off. Because Boise's at 8, they moved to 3. Arizona State is at 12, ranked 12. They moved to 4. Clemson's at, I think, 15 or 16. They moved to 12. Okay, that should have happened anyway, right? But now it becomes not the teams who are ranked playing each other. It becomes number 3 Boise playing whoever at whatever. You know, it just becomes it's confusing to the process. It's confusing to the fan base that you have that sort of differential right at the end of the year. You're taking teams that are, we talk about how teams are ranked 1 through 25 the whole season. And then at the last, really a few hours later, we're flipping it into rankings. And we're taking them and we're saying, well, the number 3 team lost. Well, really, they were number 8. The number 4 team lost. No, they were really number 12. You see what I mean? And so it just throws it off. And then it throws off who plays who when and how early they play them. Those are the things I think that the commissioners have to look at. And from my perspective, take the CFP chair hat off, the CFP committee member hat off. This is just an AD speaking as an AD. I want the teams ranked and playing in the playoffs the way they were ranked. And if Clemson has to come in at 12 because they're outside of the top 12, so be it. Then Arizona State should have moved from 12 to 11. Clemson should have moved to 12. Boise State should have stayed at 8. They would have hosted a home game. Still got the benefit of having it. But the rest of it, the whole process, I think, is very well done in terms of the ranking. It's really just the seeding that threw it off, man. And it caused a lot of consternation and a lot of, I think, lack of understanding, a lot of having to explain over and over and over and over again how, no, well, this is, they earned it because even though they were 8 and 12, they earned it because they won their conference championship and they wanted to, give them a bye and those kind of things. So I think that's where the confusion. Now, before I leave, we're talking about football. I want to talk to our fans and let you know, get renewals of your season tickets in by Friday. This is not why I'm on the air, but since I'm on the air, I will say we need you to renew your tickets by Friday. Thank you.
Ward, thanks for dropping by. We appreciate it. I mean, we can obviously go forever, but, we keep you waiting. We keep you hanging for the next time.
Well, March, hopefully. We'll find time in March, maybe a Monday or Tuesday, but I'm hoping that it's a long March for travel for me.
Yeah, hey, from his lips, right? We hope we are traveling in March as well. But until the next time, folks, we appreciate you. And we hope we'll be on the road because we got some traveling to do on the recruiting trail. So I'll be telling you more about that as well. But until then, we'll see you next time on the next edition of the Michigan Insider. See you tomorrow.
Go
on
Blue.
Big 1050 at the Big1050.com.